In January 2025, the occupying Russian forces suffered traditionally heavy losses across several categories. These losses stem from systemic issues in supply, staffing and command. Oleksandr Kovalenko, a military and political observer with the Information Resistance Group of Ukraine, shared his analysis of Russia's military losses in January. In January 2025, Russian forces reported 48,240 personnel losses, which, while not a record, marked the second highest total since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. This category has consistently remained high and continues to set records. The trend is expected to persist throughout 2025, the observer says. For comparison, Russian personnel losses totaled 92,920 in 2022, 253,290 in 2023, and a staggering 430,790 in 2024. In January, Russian forces lost 230 tanks. In recent months, their average monthly loss of main battle tanks had declined to 250 to 300, with some months seeing fewer than 200 lost. The Russian command continues to enforce strict conservation measures as tank reserves in storage and depots dwindle. As a result, record high losses of 450 to 500 tanks per month, seen in the past, are unlikely to occur again, the observer explains. In January, Russian forces lost 610 armored fighting vehicles. While not an absolute record, this is still a significant figure given the systemic crisis in the production and restoration of armored vehicles. In January 2025, Russian forces lost 961 artillery pieces. While not a record, this figure surpasses the losses recorded in December and November. This increase is linked to Russian losses in other categories, which have forced artillery to provide greater fire support for advancing infantry. Additionally, weather conditions have hindered long-range drone targeting, requiring artillery to be positioned closer to the front line. Throughout January, Russian forces lost 10 multiple launch rocket systems units. Given the severe crisis Russian forces face in this category, it is unlikely that we will see significantly higher losses anytime soon, unless North Korean systems are deployed to offset the irrecoverable losses that Russia can neither produce nor restore, the observer concludes. In January 2025, Russian forces lost 18 air defense systems. This figure reflects the ongoing crisis in replenishing and compensating for these losses. Air defense systems are considered a critical category for Russian forces in terms of replenishment difficulty. Losses of military and civilian transport. Due to the depletion of tanks, AFVs and armored vehicles, Russian forces have resorted to using civilian transport for assaults. It is now common to see Russian troops storming positions in UAZs, VAZ-2121, Niva vehicles, laders and other civilian cars. This contributes to consistently high personnel and transport losses. Kovalenko adds, in January, Russian forces lost 55 units of specialized military equipment. The losses of Russian forces in the first month of 2025 were not expected. They were entirely predictable. Russian command continues active offensive operations, attempting to compensate for the shortage of specialized military equipment by using civilian transport and infantry. Instead of tanks and AFVs, more infantry is sent into battle in light vehicles. The intensity of combat operations may gradually decline in the near future, but this is unlikely to significantly impact losses in categories such as personnel and transport, the observer concludes. Ukrainian military expert Serhiy Zgurets noted that as of today, Russia lacks the strength and capability to fully push Ukrainian units out of the Kursk region. He shared the information on Espresso TV. After the fourth wave of offensives in the Kursk region, which ended the week before last, the Russians are now regrouping. The attempts to push Ukrainian forces back have failed. Several foreign publications reported that Russian occupiers have withdrawn their North Korean troops who were operating alongside Russian forces in the Kursk region, noted the military expert. According to him, on February the 2nd, during a meeting with Associated Press journalists, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that 12,000 North Korean troops had been deployed in the Kursk region, with 4,000 eliminated. This means North Korea's combat potential has significantly diminished. On the night of January the 30th to the 31st, strikes targeted Russian army command posts, including in the Rilsk area of the Kursk region. In his interview, Zelensky also mentioned that a significant number of both Russian and North Korean officers were killed in the attack on this command post. In any case, as I understand it, the Russian army currently lacks the strength and capability to fully push Ukrainian units out of the Kursk region. The fighting continues and will likely persist for some time, Serhiy Zgurets concluded. On January the 27th, Sky News, citing Ukrainian military sources, reported that about 2 weeks ago, North Korean troops temporarily withdrew from the front line in Russia's Kursk region. However, they are expected to return soon. Later, the head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, Oleksandr Kovalenko, stated that the North Korean military, which the Russian forces engaged to participate in the war against Ukraine, has not learned how to resist Ukrainian drones and artillery and is currently working with officers to work on mistakes. On January the 31st, the NYT reported that North Korean troops fighting alongside the Russian army against Ukraine in the Kursk region were withdrawn from the front line due to heavy losses. Now it appears that Russia is trying to forcefully return North Korean soldiers to Kursk this time. The battles for Velyka, Novosilka in Donetsk Oblast continue. There, the army of the aggressor country has found itself in a so-called fire pocket. This was reported by the 110th Separate Mechanized Brigade of Ukraine. The battle for the city continues. The enemy has found itself in a fire trap. It cannot advance further, and at the same time, it is forced to reinforce its units in the city, the statement said. It is noted that aerial reconnaissance is operating in Velyka Novosilka, which records the movements and presence of occupiers. In addition, FPV drones and artillery enter the battle, which build up the basements in which the enemy has taken up positions, burying them there alive. Now the enemy does not understand what to do. The effect of the propaganda flag has ended, but the occupiers have not stopped dying. The defenders emphasized. The village, with a pre-war population of 5,000, lies only around 15 kilometers from the administrative border with Zaporizhia Oblast and 20 kilometers from Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, a region so far untouched by Russian occupation. The 110th Brigade said that both Russia and Ukraine had parity in equipment, but Moscow had significant advantage in manpower. According to the Ukrainian military, Russian forces will struggle to advance their offensive onward. The Mokry Yali River creates an obstacle for Russia's advance, and Russian troops are in a vulnerable fire pocket, said the brigade. Recall that, as reported by the media, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Kovalenko, stated that the Pokrovsk direction remains one of the hottest on the front, and fighting continues there. Ukrainian soldiers are continuously inflicting losses on the Russian occupiers. The representative of the Lugansk OTG, Dmitry Zaporozhets, reported that the occupation army of the aggressor country Russia in the Toretsk direction is actively using mines to destroy shelters and mine areas for moving forward. In addition, it is known that Ukrainian military personnel were able to stop the movement of Russian occupiers along the railway line between Kotlin and Pokrovsk.